Welcome back. I left on this slide. We're talking about coastal processes in this chapter. Here's kind of a slide emphasizing a migrating shoreline with sea level rise. Here it's showing up at A. It's showing the barrier island and lagoon, and over here it's showing you basically in red. This is the previous basically shoreline in 1849, and with sea level rise, that has basically the shoreline has migrated landward towards the state of Maryland. And here is just showing you an example here at a at this is at a given sea level, and as sea level migrates landward, it basically erodes this barrier island, and you get basically a new barrier island that's created, and the lagoon also migrated landward as well. So these barrier islands kind of actually form as sea level rises. So we can use these in the future. We can actually date these barrier islands as well to help kind of put a chronology together and to try to understand this through time. So here's the famous beach, Miami Beach. If anybody's been to Miami Beach, my wife and I actually enjoyed Miami Beach last summer. It was my first time there, and it's beautiful. The beach is so warm. That's kind of what surprised me is the water. It's like bath water. You can just stay in the water all day. It's so nice. But here, anyways, this is just showing the Miami Beach, Florida, before the Beach Nourishment Project, and this is typically Miami is fighting a battle with beachside erosion and longshore drift, and it's just showing here that the beach is very, very small here and narrow due to erosion, and they have these projects where they can transport sand. They can get sand from either quarries or wherever they can get the sand from. And here's the project after the Beach Nourishment Project, and I mean it's almost increased the shoreline by like a factor of 5, but much better for beaches, and this helps tourism as well. So if you have better beaches, you can bring more money in. So here's kind of we'll talk about erosional coastlines. We're going to look into receding shorelines. We'll touch on wave cut platforms, wave cut cliffs, and then we'll look at arches and stacks. And according to FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, about 25% of homes and other structures are within 500 feet of U.S. coastlines and shorelines of the Great Lakes, and they are basically fall victim to erosion. And this is I know this is pretty important down on the Great Lakes. I have a colleague at Madison that's studying erosion of along Lake Michigan, and he's got a lot of he set up a lot of devices to measure the water pressures and measuring displacements along the coast or along the shorelines. So hopefully his research is coming along. So here's just an example of a wave cut terrace here, and it looks like we have some landslides. It looks like this slope is unstable here. So this is a bird's eye view of the South Bethany Beach in Delaware, and it shows you basically what's going to happen over time. Here's the shoreline today, and they can predict what the shoreline is going to be in 30 years and then in 60 years. So the people that have built resorts and have their beach houses along the coast are in for a surprise in terms of, if they plan on, staying, at their beachfront property for, the next several decades. Either if you were smart, you'd sell, you could sell and make, make some money. But yeah, they're going to be fighting against this erosion, beachside erosion over the next couple of decades. So we can basically, predict what's going to happen based on the dynamics of the shoreline. Here's a kind of a Washington State coastline after the winter El Nino storm. This is in October 1997, and this is after the storm in 1998. You could see all the debris that's been just deposited or left along the shoreline here. You can see some of this house that was here. It's no longer here. It looks like it was over in this area and it's been wiped. It's completely gone. But yeah, the storms also, during a storm, obviously the wave agitation increases, the wave velocity increases, everything's just increases in terms of the erosion rate increases, and yeah, it can be really catastrophic in terms of the degree. Here's another, this is kind of just showing another example of the same storm. So here it's showing in October 1998, and this is to April 1998 here. And again, do you see any markers? You can see here, looks like this is gone, this little place here. So this road that comes through here, yeah, this looks like, yeah, this is gone, and the road that was here, it's been gone. So a lot of things have changed. This mobile home structure is gone as well. So yeah, pretty bad. Here, look at this. This is interesting. This is bracing for the storm. These are all huge sandbags. It looks like this backhoe is trying to get rid of all this sand that's been deposited in front of this kind of resort. Wow, this is crazy. Here, look at this. This is just an example of not to build a structure along the shoreline. I mean, you get a lot of slope. This is all unstable, obviously unstable slopes. You get a lot of landslides. What happens is you build a lot of water pressure up in this sand, and it basically decreases its shear strength, and it just deforms it turns into a slurry, and your house basically goes down the slope. As you know, here they have, looks like they have stilts or some types of concrete columns to help stabilize these houses, but it's just, the substrate is just, it's so bad. I mean, it's unstable. So not smart to build any types of structures here. So here's just a satellite view showing the East Coast, Delaware, Chesapeake Bay, and basically they're showing submergent coastlines formed due to sea level rise. So I know the East Coast has been fighting with sea level over the last millennia, and a lot of these these barrier islands and coral reefs have migrated landward. Speaking of changes in sea level rise over the last thousands of years, when I talked briefly about glaciation, you guys should know that the glaciers have basically have waxed and waned throughout time. And here's just showing, this is the present day ice cover here, and this is showing ice cover over the last 21,000 years. And obviously, you guys know the difference between a glacial is during a period in time where the glaciers had advanced into the U.S., and then an interglacial is a period where the ice has melted and the glaciers have receded. And what happens is, over through time, what can happen is they can measure the the coral reefs. They can use the coral reefs as an indicator, and of basically the migrating shoreline. And here's what they've done. They've looked at basically they looked at, so this is showing the sea level as a function of age in thousands of years, and they can kind of document when the sea level started to decrease with time here. So here it's showing 8,000 years ago our sea level was much lower, and they can essentially date these by looking at these coral reef platforms through time. And here they can see, this is kind of pointing out here, showing you this is present to 18,000 years, and this is just kind of blown up here. But in the past, we've had our sea level was a lot lower, so our coastlines are dominated by rising sea levels and are marine dominated. So there's this really good article I would urge you guys to visit here, is to look at this article, because they can, through time, they can look at how sea level has declined and how sea level has how it has risen by looking at these carbonate platform reefs, and they can age date these and determine sea level changes. So it's pretty interesting. I would recommend you guys check that out. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I'm over my time. So I'll see you guys soon again.